Hi, and welcome to this video, which I call Fully Automated Software Development. What you're about to see is something that came out of a local user group I'm part of, where we have a monthly discussion about AI. And the topic of the session last week, as of this recording, was this fully automated software development. So what we wanted to cover in a kind of brainstorm, and now we'll turn it into this video. So if you have any comments for this, definitely be part of the discussion in the comments. But the idea was we already have agents that can write a surprising amount of software. In my case, I use Codex in order to do that. And I will make videos in the future about exactly how I actually do software development nowadays because it's changing a lot. But the idea was, what is it that stops it from taking over the entire development loop and can be able to run autonomously? What do we do to do more to for an AI to be able to access our data, test our data, control our data, and so on? And when we talk about the entire development loop, we're talking about change requests coming in, what we need to build, how we design it and plan it, how we develop it, how we test and review it, how we deploy it, and how we monitor it. And right now, this is a human team that does this. How can an AI take it over entirely? Not that I think we are ready to do that, but we need to begin to go in that direction, in my opinion. I'm not against software development, but I also see the value of bringing more value to customers and us becoming more a product manager style in the development loop. So that was the premise of the meeting. What you're about to see is now my presentation that was there. There was some discussion along the way. I will try to tell a little about what we talked about, but else, again, sound down in the comments on your opinions about all this. So there was a journey toward fully automated software. We started out with manual development and did that for quite a while. And then when AI came along, we began to use ChatGPT for copy paste of certain small things and so on. Then Copilot came along. We did small method generation, but just few things here and there. And then AI coding agents came along and began to take over some percentage of the code while the humans still wrote another percent of the code. Further up, we get to that it's AI generating all the code and the human is reviewing. And if we go even further, it will be AI generating all the code and no human review. And then the end goal of this discussion we had was to see, can AI be the entire software development team, meaning product manager, UX, coder, and DevSecOps. And along the way, I will show you where I feel I am on this journey right now. But you need to evaluate yourself where you are on the journey and how you get to the next step. I'm not forcing you to go to a next step and so on. There's very different opinions about should AI be used in coding, but I'm taking the stance of I want to come here. I might not never get there fully, but I will damn sure try and go higher up because I like the challenge of getting something that feels impossible to actually work. So I would put myself around here. I don't write code anymore when it comes to production code. I do for this channel because I want to have the learning part as well. But when it comes to work related code, I have it fully automated, and I'm closing in on not having any human reviews anymore. So I'm not there yet, but I'm trying to go there. And that is why we want to figure out where our readiness in AI success is. The fact that I'm here means that I've gone through some of these already in various preparedness levels, but still have some ways to go. Because we can put this into 4 different sections. We can say how ready is the software, or the source code, how ready is the infrastructure you're working on, your machines and setups and so on. How ready is the company you work for, or your own company if you own it? And how ready are you yourself in this AI journey? And I will show a few slides here where I rate each one of these 4 in various different aspects, and also tell you where I am and what I feel I need to work on, or what I did in order to get there. So first one is software preparedness. Uh, we can work with how the source code is structured. If you have all the source code that needs to be uh, used is in a mono repo or some kind of place where you can just manipulate or let AI manipulate all of it, it is very easy to do. So what you're going to see is the higher you are on these, the better, or the easier it is to actually do AI software development. Some of these you might not be able to handle, and then you need to do workarounds around them. But if you have all the code in one place where code can be accessed, it's easy. If you have siloed code, meaning you have different teams, and the only way the different teams can manipulate each other is perhaps by NuGet packages or by services, AI might see some black boxes that it can't take care of. So that's the first one. The second one is testability. Is the code written in a unit test friendly manner? Is it all static down here? Then we can't really let an AI loose on code if it can't make it testable, so we can't check for regressions and so on. There's different ways of test, of course, end user unit tests, integration test, end user unit test, end-to-end test, and so on. So, but where you are in the testable state. And the testable is both in how well the code is structured to do it, but also what kind of data that code touches. Is it something that you can make a development environment, stage environment, production environment, or are you running directly against the live database or third-party systems? So you can't really let a system try to add, update, remove things in your own code. Then there's deployability. Is it 100% you submit the code and it are deployed to the customer, or is it some manual deployment where you build a machine, move some files over, you have a Word document in 3 pages telling how to get to the new version, and so on. Then there's one you probably can't just automatically get higher on if you have a lots of code. If your code base is 10,000 lines of code, I've just taken 2 extreme numbers here, then it's probably easy to let an AI understand it. While if you have 10 million lines of code, it might be much more difficult, and you need to give areas to different AI agents in order to do this. Then there's criticality level of what happens if your code fails. If it's just some prototype code, doesn't really matter if it fails. While if it's mission critical to the point where someone could die if you have a bug, it could be medical software, security software, and so on. Then you of course need to have a different way of preparedness. And finally, we have loops and monitoring. Do you log Do you have logs? Do you have bug bug logs? Do you have usage telemetry? Do you know how many pressed that button in the last 14 days? Or do you have nothing at all? So that's what I'm meaning by software preparedness. The higher you are on all these scales, the more easy it will be to introduce AI into your system. These are where I am right now. I definitely have code that is very easy to maintain. It's in one repo, everything, and I don't really depend on too many external dependencies that the AI should also be able to control. My main hurdles and issues I have right now is testability, and that's mostly because right now I'm working on an internal access portal. And early days before AI, it was just integrated directly up against live systems like HubSpot and so on, and we didn't go into the extra work of making an extra HubSpot account and so on and so forth. So most of my code is running directly uh, on live data, which is a problem, of course, and it's one of the areas I need to improve in order to become even better, in order to go to the next step. So testing is also low here because of this dependency over here. Deployability. My code is a Blazor server, which I'm basing all this on. And that's not really good for red-green deployment, so I can't deploy in the middle of the day while people are working. And in order to go higher, I would need to go and find some deployment slots or whatever I can do in order to work on that. But else, it's fairly easy. It's just press a button and I could technically give access for AI to do that. The amount of code is not in the 10 millions and so on. I think I have 250,000 lines of code. So it's manageable for AI to grok without any issues. The criticality, it's an internal portal, so I'm fairly high up on this list, which is lucky. Had I been down here, I wouldn't probably use AI at all, or I even wouldn't be on the team making something that critical. But luckily, I'm internal only, so it's a little. I can dare a little more, which is nice. In terms of feedback and monitoring, I definitely do logs and stuff, but I really don't do too much usage telemetry, and that's where I need to improve it as well. So the way you should see this is you should try to put yourself into these lists and then begin to make some action items on what you should do in order to become better. Because you don't need to be 100% in all of these, but you definitely need to find your weak spots and actually do something about them in order to let AI loose more on your system and get to the further levels of automation. Second up, we have infrastructure and access. So this is all about hardware and data access. So ironically, we have run into a problem now, being that it became popularized in the last 10 years that developers shouldn't have a desktop machine, but they should have a laptop only, so they could easily work anywhere. But laptops have kind of become a bottleneck because we often want to have automations and AI run either with some kind of Hermes agent, OpenClaw, or automations in, for example, Codex. And if you have a laptop and the meme is all around there with people running with their laptops slightly open so don't stop working anymore. So you definitely need, in my book, to have both a laptop and a desktop now in order to be fully ready for AI. Uh, so you can actually have it run 24/7 or on schedules. Schedules is interesting part here, because else it will be you being the initiator of everything and you becoming the bottleneck. How you can access that hardware is also important. Do you have remote access from anywhere in the world, or do you need to be in the office in order to actually touch your machine? Because then nothing can really happen outside normal when you're not present in the system. And then there's access to data. Are you allowed to actually touch the data, or is your legal department stopping you from using what you need? In my case, I'm fairly high on all these. I have both a desktop and a laptop to do everything. It can be accessed anywhere. I just have internet, and I am fairly allowed in the company I work for to get access to every single little piece of data. There's transparency in everything we do, so there's no hidden secrets or anything that my software need. So again, go in and check. Definitely try to figure out something with this. Either get some virtual machines that can be accessed or can run schedules from anywhere. Then we have the company you work for or you own, uh, and its preparedness. So first up is if the company have an AI first mindset, and here I'm going a little beyond just development. In that, in my book, everyone in a company should know AI, learn AI, and use AI, because we need to get to the same situation, especially when it comes to feedback and stuff like that. Um, so there should be a mindset of saying AI is the first way of trying things, and only if AI can't do it, we will do it in a manual way or another way. Then there's the data quality of your data. You might have some SharePoint, you have some OneDrive, you have some databases, you have some various system you store data in. Is it just a mess? Is it just some PDFs lying all over the place, all locally on a machine? Or is it ordered? Is it structured? And even if you want to get to the highest point of this, is it vectorized so AI can actually do similarity searches in it? So that's a very uh, important thing, especially when we begin to look at how we actually improve by giving more data to AI. Then there is if there's an AI budget, is it are you allowed to use all the AI you need? Do you have a budget, or is it something that you need to ask on a case by case basis? And then together with that, also the freedom to experiment, is it something that you need to ask for? Am I allowed to use AI in this project, or can I spend some time trying to figure out if AI can do this? And actually need to ask permissions, or is it in the AI first mindset more a demand that you should actually try to use AI for everything? And finally, there's the feedback loop. This is mostly the internal feedback loop because most external feedback loops are structured. But is it the sales guy just popping by your desk and saying, "Hey, it could be nice to have this, this, and this"? Is it people at the coffee machine talking about, oh, it could be nice to do this? But if it's only in people's minds and being given in an unstructured format, then we can't really let AI know it. So we need to have more feedback systems, put it into forms and structures, surveys, and so on, in order to figure out where we stand, and if there's new ideas and stuff, that it become digitized so an AI can also access it. These are where I lie. The company I work for have an AI first mindset. Everyone in the company is using Codex in our case. So everyone, to various degrees, of course, are doing AI. We also started very early with getting the data in a good quality. We have lots and lots of our data, like support data, internal knowledge bases, and so on, vectorized. So it's very easy to give to AI in a structured manner. Our AI budget, I haven't put it fully at the top because the AI budget is more or less use what you need. That technically should be at the top, but I often hate that spending extra money compared to the different subscriptions I have. And so that's the more personal thing of me. I'm not stopped in using AI and as much on it as I want to, but more that my subscription goes to zero and then there's overusage, and I don't like doing overusage instead of having a bigger subscription, perhaps. Freedom to experiment. Given that I am the AI front runner in the company, I especially have freedom to experiment with all kinds of AI and do it on a regular basis. But everyone in the company actually have that to various degrees of other obligations, of course. In terms of feedback and structure, it's still much around the the coffee machine and so on, and I definitely need to do something more in that area. The final one is your own preparedness. Um, there you need to have your AI skills, and not the skills themselves, but your general knowledge of what AI is. So you need to come to a point where if someone says MCP server, you know exactly what that means, what skills means, what reasoning level means, what all these things is. Because if it's like a second language to you, let's say if I could speak French, I can't, but if I could say just a few words, I could say, yeah, I know French, and in the equal manner here, yeah, I know AI. But if someone then says, should we use an MCP server or a skill? And I need to think, what is an MCP server? What is a skill? Oh yeah, that's this and this. That needs to come natural. The more natural that comes, the better. Second, we need to trust AI. Do you trust AI in doing the right thing, despite it being non-deterministic? Of course, but do you let it get access to your code, your database, your external sites, and so on and so forward? Or is everything on allow this inside your coding agent? Your own coding laziness level also have impact on you. If you do something again and again, are you lazy enough to go in and actually do something about it? It's very much ties together with this love to think and improve, which we'll come to. Then I also put in not really AI, but still, if you don't understand why you're doing what you're doing, you will never be able to use AI, in my opinion, because we're slowly getting from you can't just be a good C# developer and just get some input and output. It needs to make when the button is pressed to do this, when the thing is this. You need to become much better at understanding why you're doing things the way you do from a business perspective. This has always been a good skill also before AI, but now it becomes even more critical because you're slowly getting into a kind of product manager role where you control your AI in order to do things. You also need to love to tinker and improve, because I see there's three levels of people. Let's say there's something, it annoys you. Do you do something about it? Either you hate doing something about it and you're very low on this list. You also There can also be people, yeah, I should do something about this, but they never do. And then there is, I should do something about it. Let's do it. And then you are highest on this list. I also put the C sharp skills, given that we are an AI and C sharp channel here. But of course, there could be any other levels of software development skills involved. But while C sharp skills are still important, if you are brand new out of school, you still need to learn C sharp. You need to become good at it. You should still use AI to generate it, but you should be much more hands on with that code and ask the AI, why did it do this? Why did it do this? And so on. I have 20 plus years of C sharp skills level. I've never been very, very good at C sharp, but I've been decent at it. But it is slowly getting less important. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's less important now than, for example, the understand why level. In the old days, you could get by being really good at this and not caring about this. This you need to care about now, and this you need to care a little less about if you want to. Uh, there's no wrong in being really, really good at C sharp still, but there's certain other things that begins to be quite important for you to also know. This is why I put myself at this. My AI skill level have definitely come from actually writing C sharp code with AI in it. And I've done that for almost 2 years now, almost every day. So a very good way as a C sharp developer is to look at some of my other videos, do a crash course in how you actually do C sharp do AI inside C sharp. Also, even if it's just for you still using AI agents to generate other code and you don't need AI inside your own product, but just knowing it and understanding how to prompting work, how tool calling work, how reasoning work, and so on is deeply beneficial also as a user of AI. I don't think I would be to this level of understanding AI and being able to generate a channel and conducting meetings like this if I didn't hadn't done that part. So I would definitely recommend, even if you don't need it for anything, try and at least do an implementation of a small chatbot, uh, giving it access to tools, understanding RAG, and so on, because it will deeply help you in becoming a good user of AI as well. My trust level is very, very high with AI, to the level where in private I actually give it access to my bank. That's the level of trust I give it. Yes, it will probably hurt me at the end at some point with some random thing that goes wrong, but I see the benefit over the cost too great to not trust something like this. But I could sit here in a week and have made a huge mistake with AI, but that will just be the way it is. Coding laziness, I'm definitely very, very lazy. I want to do only things once, and if I need to do it multiple times, I will take care of it. It's gone down a bit because I'm now letting AI do it instead, uh, but it's still very high on my thing. And then we come to my superpower. I have always been good at understanding why people had pains with the way they did. So understanding why people wanted to have things, so I could give them the best solutions. Jumping to the last one, I've been an okay C# developer throughout my life, but it's always been the business why that has made me excel in the areas I pursued. And at the same time, yes, we have AI now to improve and tinker and so on, but I have been doing this for 20 plus years of my life, uh, always trying to automate things, automate everything as much as I could. The problem, but also my luck, was that I was a C# developer and was able to do it and was allowed to do it in the various positions I had. So I have always done what we do now today with AI and automations and optimizing processes and so on. But in the past, when I needed to then execute on it, I needed to write the C# code as well, and I did, because I have that gene of getting shit done in those areas. But now it's even more nice to do because of AI can do so much of the heavy lifting of it. So that's probably one of the reasons also why I love AI. AI is a tool I was more or less waiting for my entire life without even knowing. So those are the four levels of preparedness: company, infrastructure, software, and so on. So, how do we prepare AI as well? Or how prepared are it now? AI has been evolving the last 2, 3 years, from almost being able to do nothing to doing some amazing things. Uh, and again, I will show videos about how I use AI in coding in further videos after this. But if we look at it, we talk about how much can an out-of-the-box AI do the various software development roles. How well is it as being a researcher, a product manager, UXer, coder, reviewer, DevOps, or dev security? And when I say this, I mean trying to see trying to see how well would it fare without too much instruction. Because if we sit down and write really, really good instructions, all AI can do is do a good work in most of these areas. But it's more if I just say, do my work as a coder, it could probably do fairly well, while in other areas it will fare much harder because lots of the information to do my work in quotation marks is in sources that the AI wouldn't have access to. So I put it like this. It's really, really good at research. So in a fairly simple prompt, I could say, do my work as a researcher into SaaS business and so on. So it doesn't really need much context in order to do fairly good research in certain areas. It's not top because there can be lots of things, and we'll go into what those different things are in the coming slides here. While, for example, in Coda, it can definitely just get a task and look at the existing code and really, really get far without much guidance. If we give it more guidance, it will definitely be better, but it will fare fairly well. So in research areas, it's fairly okay. Research is kind of a known thing, and often it will get some kind of subject, and from there it can just do everything it needs by itself. Where it really lacks is in product management. It If you just say to an AI, "What should I build next?" it would not know, because a lot of that data is in obscure systems in your mind. It's a subjective question in, should we please this big customer over here? Should we try to make our product faster? Is there too many bugs? Is there much technical debt? Is it new features to get into this new country and so on? So there's a lot of parameters in the product management work. And we'll look into what we can do about that as well. UX, all depending on how far you are yourself on the UX scale, you might feel like AI is really, really good at GUI, while if you are a real UXer, you will see all the small issues it does and its stock ways of doing things. But it's fairly okay at building fairly production-ready UI. Coda, as I mentioned, is probably one of the best because they have been trained so much at it, and it can often look into existing code and figure out coding styles and what we need to do based on very, very little information. Review is a kind of external role anyway, so looking at someone else's code and say, is this good code in terms of security, performance, and so on and so forth. That's one of the ones that's highest on. DevOps, it definitely knows all the DevOps terms, CI, CD, can do YAML really well than probably 99% of all humans as well, in order to do workflows and so on and so forth. It's also good at infrastructure as code and stuff like that. So therefore, that's definitely also high. Security, they were high, but now with the recent developments in limiting how much it can do security stuff, so I put it fairly low because of these new limitations. You might even need a open source model that is not limited in order to do really, really good security operations. So how do we get AI closer to be optimal for each of these roles? This is what the next section is about. And I put in a few general things, and then we have for each one of the areas a lot of things, or some of them are fairly straightforward what we need to do, at least according to me. But again, sound out in the comments if I miss any. But general initiatives in order to get AI more ready is to create skills that define a role. So if you're trying to optimize it for being a product manager, you need to, as a product manager yourself, or interview the product manager and ask them, what do they do? What is good behavior? What is bad behavior? How does the company's culture affect this work? What constraints are there in terms of our setup, and so on and so forth. So in general, there should be a skill called how to be a good PM, or how to be a good coder, how to be whatever. We also need to identify the sources that the human counterpart have today, and expose as many of them as possible via structured data. So if the human says, yeah, I'm the PM, and the way I choose the things is I look through my emails that I have ordered in a specific way, and then I choose what the next thing is. Then AI needs to have access to that person's email. If they say, I have a Jira or Trello or DevOps system where I have my backlog and it's prioritized, AI should have access to that backlog, and so on and so forth. If it's in our area, it's mostly important to check out the competitors and figure out what they do, and we need to look at these interesting trends and so on. Tell the system where you learn from the industry strength. Tell them who the competitors are. So we also need to get into a mindset of updating these skills and frameworks to be optimized every single time you deviate. you can sit with an AI and do things, and you feel like, oh, that was kind of wrong. And most people, again, if they don't have the preparedness of tinkering, they just say, try again, or uh, AI is stupid, we can't use it, or just don't do anything. You need to go in, and every single time something goes wrong, actually say update skill to do, so we know this, this, and this. We need to tinker with skills and the entire framework of getting this automated, even to the point where it's more important than the product in the beginning, is my opinion. Of course, there is deadlines, there's budgets to be made, and so on. But if you're really into trying to go to this next level, you need to also say, I need some dedicated time to actually do this. This doesn't come magically. You really, really need to spend a lot of time on tweaking these things. So it's it's a little like, if a man is hungry, you can give him a fish, and then he are not hungry anymore. While if you give him a fishing rod and teach him how to fish, then you get a better long-term outlook on everything. And this is exactly the same. You also shouldn't just say, give the excuse, AI is not good enough for what I do, so let's wait 6 months before we try. No, aim for what we know AI will do in 6 months, or think AI will do in 6 months. So go in, do it now, despite it being not good enough at it. It needs to slowly learn, it needs to help, it needs to do the easy parts of your job. And in the same manner, do it despite it perhaps even being slower than you can do it manually. But if you do it manually forever, you will never get an AI. And again, I'm not trying to dumb your job down. I'm just saying one of the things that also needs to happen in all this is that you get familiar with how AI reacts. Just like when you get a new colleague, you need to figure out how they work best, how their mannerisms are, what to say to them, what not to say to them, how to say it to them, and so on. And AI is exactly the same. So see AI perhaps as a little slower, brand new colleague that you need to help become a success in your company, just like a colleague. So that's the reason for 3, 4, and 5. You can't just sit and wait and just assume, now I have AI, I paid huge money for it, and it's a big subscription and so on. So I don't need to invest in it more than that. I should be able to just say, do my job. That will never happen. That will not work. You will need to do more work. You need to invest in it, just like you invest in a new colleague. I put it here because I couldn't really fit it anywhere else, but also give it access to things like meeting recordings. Let it learn how the human team works. Record all meetings. Let it learn from all meetings that you have, sales meetings, and so on and so forth, all depending on which of the roles we're aiming for here. Because it's a good way of telling the system how you actually work. So those are the general initiatives. Let's talk a little about each area. First being my market researcher. So as I mentioned, give it access to competitors. Tell it the customer values, uh, how we work. If we are into green technology, of course, it shouldn't research how to do it with coal power plants or whatever it is. It needs to fit what you would do and what the company would do. And again, define target audience. If your target audience is young, it's a completely different market research than if it's some product for the elderly. When it comes to product manager, which is where you need to do the most in order for AI to become better, it is mostly give it data. Give it usage stats, and if you don't collect usage stats, begin doing so. Monitoring data. If you don't do that, do so. Performance data, feedback system. If you don't have a feedback system, build a feedback system. Give it access to your emails as the product manager. And at the same time, educate people to use a feedback system. You should not get feature requests by email as a product manager. That has nothing to do with AI, but just good practices. Because again, we need structured ways of having data, because else we can't really give it in a nice way to AI. And then if you don't have a task system, begin to have a task system. Have a backlog of what you do. If the only backlog you have is in your mind that I need to build this and then this and then this, then you can never give AI that, or not at least until an AI can read your thoughts, which that's a little further out, of course. Even to the point where if you need to begin to look at what sources can be needs of change in software development. So that could be support questions. AI should begin and analyze the support question and see if there's a pattern in certain things that we need to build. Feature requests from existing users, sales requests or things the competitor have, the backlog, error and maintenance logs. If there's a lot of errors, we should do something about it, because else we might lose the customers, because it's not a nice experience. It could also be performance, that things run slow. But there's also things like feature requests from internal users. There can be legal and security requirements. There can be new tech opportunities that we need to do something about. And then there's all the other things like tech dev, and we need to perhaps do rewrites of code. There can be roadmaps that we need to follow, God forbid. Usage patterns analysis. What makes sense to invest in? What makes sense to sunset? If we have a feature that nobody uses, and we can see that from our uh, telemetry data, then of course we should try to get rid of it. And then of course there can be external dependency changes as well, from third-party systems. For example, if you integrate into Shopify and they add a new feature, that could have impact on your system. And AI can take that into account when it chooses what to build next, without your involvement. So product manager is definitely one of the areas I also want to really find a good way of doing more, and I definitely feel I'm doing too little here. In terms of UX, I'm not a UXer, but I definitely think that the best way of doing something here is to begin to have a design system. I've written down design system, or follow a general purpose one that already exists out there, because there's normally so much information in a design system that it is more than plenty for an AI. So if you don't have a design system, it's probably the best thing to actually go and create one or adapt one. For coding, the top one here is mostly for the AI labs to do. We need, of course, more model intelligence and context window size, not only for coding, but it's one of the ones that are the most heavy. So we need that. We can't really, other than pay for it, get or manipulate this ourselves. But what we can manipulate is, of course, the best coding practices. So if we just tell an AI to write some C# code, it will in one session do it one way, in another session do it another way, because there is no right way if you don't tell it. So definitely go in and enable some of the more opinionated things about C# in our case, like nullability, turn it on, warning as errors, turn it on, enforce the way you want to do things. Is it tabs or spaces? Put it in an editor config file. Is it you need to have a async as a suffix of all await methods? Put it in an editor config file. And everything you put into an editor config file, make it appear as errors. So the code can't compile if they are not followed. Because when an AI codes and it can't compile, it knows that did something wrong. So go in and put as much of the way your team works into an editor config file. Do formatters and linters if need be. So you don't need to care about if the code is rightly formatted, if you have OCD in that area. Let automated systems take care of that. Not even AI, but the automated system that can fully make that happen no matter what. And in that way, because can take away a lot of the small little things that are there, where we can really focus on the business and not is this code written in a pretty way, because all of that can be abstracted away here. Refactoring is also something that you need to do if your code base is highly fragmented in various different ways. Then begin to actually refactor it, or at least tell it where not to go. So in your instructions, go in and say, whenever you do a new API, look at this, and this as an example. Don't look at this, and this, because it's an old way of doing it, and that's not how we want to do it anymore. And if you do refactorings, I often see that it's best to go in and refactor one of them by hand, or one or two of them. And once that is done, tell the system, hey, here's the new way I want, let's say again, a page on our site to behave. Here's the good new practices. Go and do that for all the other pages automatically. Because it's often too difficult to get an AI to follow rules just by text. Sometimes you need to show by writing some code yourself how it should be done, and then let it mimic based on that. Tell it, this is the good code, this is the bad code, make the bad code good code. And then, of course, write tests along the way. One of the areas I'm bad at the moment, because I don't have I have these dependencies on live tests, as I mentioned earlier in this. But go in and have the test suite be high. I'm not going against 100% test coverage, but high enough that a test will automatically also help AI write new code, because if it writes bad code, it will do some regression in either unit test, integration test, or end-to-end tests. As a reviewer, I definitely think everything should be automated AI PR reviews. Review part is a huge burden on the humans at the moment when we let AI run. So we definitely need to come to a point where we dare let AI review our code, and if it's okay with it, and a small test from us, perhaps running the code, seeing that things looks the way we want, that we don't need to review the code ourselves, that we don't need to see it anymore. Even if you want to see it, still let AI do the first level reviews to catch the easy things, and then let you find the more advanced things if you are not ready to give up the reviews yourself. And also do multiple review agents. Do a front end reviewer. do a backend review, do a security review, do a performance review, so they can focus exactly on what you can instruct an AI. Because if you just say, make a review, what should it do? It should do a little front, a little back, and little security, and so on. No, make each of them have its own setup and say, okay, I'm really, really good at focusing on this. I can focus on this little part of the diff, and so on and so forth. When it comes to DevOps, CI/CD automation, again, if you don't have it already, AI is really good at helping building workflows, YAML files, and so on to do it. But also at the end, I'm not there yet, honestly, but give it access to deploy itself. So as part of it generating some code, doing the review, and so on, should also be to push to production or push to at least a staging environment or however your setup is. Because you doing it after it have done it, what is the actual benefit? If you don't read the code, if you don't review the code in any way, why is you delaying a link in order to push it to staging? There can be, of course, if you can't push in the middle of the day due to usage, but that's where our red-green deployments, automated deployments comes in, and we need to see if we can get to that level. And again, AI can help. But then you should give it access to be able to monitor the data. Just after deploy, a lot of bugs coming in. Is there something that's been missed? Because else you will again be the delaying factor that you need to check or see in your email that people are writing in that this and this new feature don't work or anything. And then it should be able to proactively actually do something about it. I'm again not at that point because I don't let it deploy by itself, but it actually have access to my monitoring data and suggest PRs based on what it reads in the error logs and figure out and prepare that for me to push on further. But again, we are slowly getting to that level of why are we the delaying factor in all of this? If we can just build some, if we can just monitor the live website, see an error message, and do something about it without a human involvement, so it's fixed 10 minutes later, then that would be the obvious choice if we trust enough. And again, I trust a lot, but I also know some limitations right now that makes it impossible for me to go that last step. And that's where I need to work on my areas of being poor in my preparedness and work for that. And yeah, auto roll back and roll forward, of course, I like roll forward the most if possible. But there could be database regressions that need to go back to a previous version of the database and so on. God forbid. Security, penetration tests, disaster recovery drills, put into one here. I'm not too much into the day-to-day work of people like this, but I definitely know a lot of people have never tested their disaster recovery in real life, and letting AI try it on a test system and then doing on the live system at the end is probably better than someone who has never done it by themselves either. But again, I'm not an expert in this area, so this is just the two things I could figure out, and someone in the comments might be able to say more. Other things to consider. If your system is very critical, you could definitely give some different criticality gates where escalations happens to humans. So it could be that if it's something that is deemed very, very critical, it's a human that needs to approve, while just fixing spelling errors and small visual mistakes could run through different criticality gates and just automatically be deployed without any human involved. Because there can be major deployment activities, for example, big database migrations, or things that will actually make the need for a kind of service window where you optimize things, if it can't be done in the middle of the day, even despite a red green deployment. There can be documentation and marketing. I kept them out here, but of course, to me, part of writing a feature is also documenting. So to me, documentation and testing is in the same area as coding and review. But there can also be generating marketing material that fits the new features and so on and so forth. Of course, they should also be in an AI first mindset. Then there is an open problem, of course, with conflicting parallel work. If we have if we have the system run in a parallel setup, and a product manager suddenly, or two separate product managers suddenly begins to build the same feature or something that at least can collide, then we need to figure out a way to have them talk to each other and figure that out, or be a synchronous flow, which will probably still be faster than what humans can do today. Because again, the human bottlenecks are actually one of the bigger things that happens, both in terms of the big things, but also in terms of the small things. If we are the ones that need to create the task in the task system, or we are the ones that need to do the new pull request, and the more confirmations we as humans need to be in on, the more we become the bottlenecks in the system. Because AI can definitely write the code much faster than we can review it if we are a reviewer. So that is also one of the reasons why a lot of the things I focus mostly on is where we actually are the bottlenecks at the moment. So where do we go from here? If you have thought and went through this and thought, yeah, I want to also climb the ladder of more and more automated development, what should I do? Well, you definitely need to get a paid sufficient AI platform. Free don't cut it. So if you don't already have that and you're very early on your journey, go and get some AI budget to do it. Then begin to put in some AI artifacts, add Agents MD or Claude MD, add your skills, and begin to build an MCP server to slowly begin to expose all the internal data in an internal MCP server for AI to grab the data. Then understand and trust AI. Hopefully, if you're on this channel, it means you already are fairly good at that. But if you haven't ever tried and writing some C# code with some AI in it, it's one of the best ways to begin to learn. You don't need to do it forever, but just do the basics in order to better have the understanding of AI. And if you're already over those three, then begin to evaluate yourself on the various scales I showed in this PowerPoint. I will make this PowerPoint available in the description below as well, so you can grab a copy of it, and then start strengthening your areas. So, for example, me, I'm right now strengthening that I'm dependent on live systems in my internal portal. So I'm mocking the things away I can't get uh, testing systems of, and in the places I can get testing systems, that I can easily switch between a test and a live system. So I can let automated test and end-to-end test, and do everything in an automated system, or at least a mocked away system. And then in general, one thing that you can also start fairly early, even before these are ready, is to eliminate what I call micro work, meaning dead paraphase and paper cuts. If you are making a new piece of work and you're not having the AI automate everything, you will probably write something in a task system, Jira, DevOps, Trello, Monday, one of these. And then you will begin to key in some data about it. Then you will make it, then you will go grab the repo, get the latest of main, make a new branch, set your AI to code or code yourself, then do a pull request, then set someone to review it, then merge that pull request, remove the branch, grab the latest of main, and so on. Begin to automate that away. AI is really, really good at Git automation, pull request automation. I never do a Git branch anymore. I never do a pull request by pressing the buttons up in GitHub anymore. That is just a skill called great PR, for example. And then in general, uh, go through and make your process of working or building features with AI in a more automated way. So, for example, whenever an AI have generated your code, new code, make it start the website or make it start the API or whatever it is. So something is wrong if you need to go into Visual Studio and manually press F5. That's my opinion. Because it should just generate the new, rebuild it, and have it ready so you can try it again if you're needing and sitting and scoping and testing. So that's the way I see it as some of the action items you can work on. But definitely, if these basics are not there, do something about it. And then in parallel, begin to get rid of your weakest links and go and eliminate the micro work. So in my case, my action items right now is do something about this. This is too low and this is too low. So this will be my primary priority. And after that, build a lot of test suite. And after that, go in and begin to do usage telemetry. Some of these can be done in parallel at the same time, but these are my uh, main issues right now. In terms of infrastructure, I don't really need to do anything right now, so it's very low on my priority list. In this, it's my feedback loop. I need to build in a small feedback system into my portal so people can say suggest a feature. But again, I'm not touching that before these are in place. And on my own level, not much need to happen here. I still need to keep up with the AI skills and C# skills, of course. But beyond that, I feel I'm pretty far ahead on here. And in terms of the I need to get it to be a better PR. So I need to focus on what we put in PR, beginning to let it be able to get all the information about the tool so it can do that for me. So with that, that's everything. That was what we discussed in this internal group. I see that everyone needs to begin at some level of doing this. Everyone needs to slowly get on the ladder here. Doesn't matter if you're here, here. There's always a next step, and you should aim for that next step, or perhaps jump a step. I don't think these two steps should ever be done anymore if you're still in manual development. Make AI do some or most of your code, and slowly get rid of human reviews, because those are the biggest bottleneck in the system at the moment. So with that, hope you found it beneficial, and please join the discussion in figuring out if I'm too mad here, if I'm doomed in trusting AI this much, if I'm not ambitious enough, anything. I would love to hear from you. But see you on next time.